Donald Trump is throwing a total tantrum this morning, moments before Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney is set to arrive at the White House. And at the same time, Donald Trump's Treasury Secretary is testifying on Capitol Hill, and he is literally glitching out during his testimony when being asked the most basic of questions like, who pays for a tariff? More on that in a moment. Let me show you what Donald Trump is posting right now as part of this tantrum he is throwing this morning. He posts the following. I look forward to meeting the new Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney. I very much want to work with him, but cannot understand one simple truth. Why is America subsidizing Canada by $200 billion a year, in addition to giving them free, he puts that in caps, military protection and many other things? We don't need their cars. We don't need their energy. We don't need their lumber. We don't need anything. And he puts that in caps. They have, other than their friendship, which hopefully we will always maintain. They, on the other hand, need, and he puts this in caps, everything from us. The Prime Minister will be arriving shortly, and that will be most likely my only question of consequence, period. Donald Trump is trying to shame Prime Minister Carney. Donald Trump is trying to mock Prime Minister Carney. Prime Minister Carney is showing up in good faith. I think a lot of our viewers are still unclear why Prime Minister Carney is even showing up after all of the statements Donald Trump has been making, especially Donald Trump's accelerating disparagement of Canada in anticipation of this visit from Prime Minister Carney, which was a slightly more muted before, I guess, with Prime Minister Carney as it was with Trudeau. But here, Donald Trump clearly wants to make a statement that he wants to offend Canada. Donald Trump wants to go into his 51st state annexation rhetoric. Prime Minister Carney previously said he would not even show up to the White House if Donald Trump used that rhetoric. Prime Minister Carney said he would not tolerate it. Hey, Donald, by the way, maybe one of the topics to talk about, other than you wanting to annex and go to war with our ally Canada or say Greenland or other allies, is the trade deal. I don't know, the USMCA, United States, Mexico, Canada agreement, which you were responsible for in 2018, which basically amended NAFTA, which you destroyed as part of your liquidation day, liberation day, Great Recession day, depression day, whatever the heck you want to call it, and your tariff war against the world where you ripped to shreds agreements, including your own. Didn't y'all say you were going to do 90 deals in 90 days? And now we have 0 deals so far. And what'd you say over the weekend? That if you don't do deals, you're just going to make up the deals in your mind and divine what the deals are going to be. It's going to be an interesting meeting. We'll be covering it here on the MeidasTouch Network. Donald Trump also posting more bizarre photographs of Alcatraz after Donald Trump watched the movie Escape from Alcatraz this weekend while he was vacationing on the taxpayer dime in Mar-a-Lago, and then decided that he wanted to reopen Alcatraz. And then all of the MAGA Republican members of Congress were talking about how excited they are to open up a facility that hasn't been open in 60 years so they can treat prisoners with cruelty the way they're treated in El Salvador. I did a whole video about that earlier today. Check that out on the MAGA Republicans. Significant instability in our markets. They're being shaken every day. As I was saying before, this is like the tsunami when the shore recedes. I said Wall Street's picking up the fish, but we see that tsunami coming overhead, and we're seeing more of that today. The 10-year Treasury yield hit a high of 4.378, the highest level since April 23rd, and within 10 basis points of that April 11th close, which really kind of shook the Trump regime into pausing a lot of their tariffs against the world. We learned this morning that M&A deal signings, mergers and acquisition signings, hit a 20-year low right now after Donald Trump's liquidation day. Now, as Donald Trump is attacking Prime Minister Carney, you have Trump's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent testifying on Capitol Hill, and he can't even speak in sentences anymore, folks. This is the Treasury Secretary being asked the most basic question, which is, who pays tariffs? The answer is simple. The consumer pays the tariffs. The tariff is actually paid by the importing company that passes the cost on to the consumer. The most basic question that a first-year college student, not to be a first-year college student, that a middle school student should know if you just pick up a book. It's the direct answer of what a tariff is. But watch our Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, struggle to even put words together in an order. Play this clip.
Who pays tariffs, Mr. Secretary? No. Answer the questions I asked, please. I only have 5 minutes. Who pays tariffs?
Sorry. Well,
who pays tariffs?
Sorry,
Mr. Secretary, please.
Excuse me.
The question is very simply, who pays tariffs, Mr. Chairman? I'd like him to answer that question.
Well,
he wants to answer other questions.
Well, Congressman, if the exporters, they dislike tariffs so much, why wouldn't they? If I think what you're trying to get me to say.
Did you remember the question? I'm not sure you did. Who pays tariffs?
It's a very complicated question.
Reclaiming my time. People pay tariffs, right? Reclaiming my time, Mr. Secretary. Reclaiming my time, Mr. Secretary. Reclaiming my time. You clearly aren't going to answer it. I'm not going to waste my time having you go, Mr. Secretary, reclaiming.
Wow. Remember when Peter Navarro said 90 deals in 90 days? That was we're now in day 25 with 0 deals. That's why we call him No Deals Donald. But folks, a deal was struck between the United Kingdom and India. The UK and India strike a trade deal after 3 years of talks. We have a trade deal, just not with the United States. It took 3 years for the United Kingdom and India to negotiate a trade deal. Trade deals are complex. If you've been watching the MeidasTouch Network, you know I've been saying a typical trade deal takes about 3.5 years. These are complex documents that Trump ripped to shreds. These are not 90-day deals. That's not what they are. Think about fundamentally reshaping trading relationships with foreign countries. They're hard to do. They take a lot of time. And also, we have a Treasury Secretary who can't even speak in sentences. Paul Tudor Jones, billionaire hedge fund guy, was on CNBC. This guy, one of the top investors in American history, Paul Tudor Jones, he says today, and by the way, I'm not showing you people who are like, oh, these are like far lefty people, whatever the hell that even supposed to mean. I'm just, when the right wing says that, I'm showing you like bankers. I'm showing you like conservative bankers. Paul Tudor Jones, for example, says the stock market will hit new lows. Even if Trump cuts China's tariffs to 50% now, the market will hit new lows. But guess what? We're not even speaking with China. You know how Donald Trump said, oh, we're having great talks with Xi Jinping and very productive, and they've continued to lie. Well, today, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says the U.S. is still negotiating with 17 trading partners, but we have not even engaged with China as of yet. So I guess all of those statements about engaging with China was market manipulation. So that's what all that was. What did we tell you on the MeidasTouch Network? That's what they were doing. Why were we doing all those videos on market manipulation when all corporate news was saying, look, it looks like they're having some productive talks and the markets would go up? I'm like, nah, it's clearly market manipulation. Can't you absolutely see it? Yep. It was 2 weeks ago. Remember when Donald Trump was asked about the deals? And he goes, you have to understand, I'm dealing with all the companies, very friendly countries. We're meeting with China. We're doing fine with everybody. But ultimately, I made the deals. Question, but no deal has been announced yet. So when are you going to announce them? I made 200 deals. Donald Trump said. Question, you made 200 deals? Yep. 100%. Also, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said on Tuesday that the Treasury Department was at the, quote, warning track in terms of exhausting remaining borrowing capacity under the federal debt ceiling, but vowed that the government would not default on its payment obligations. Oh, because you've been truthful about everything. Also, measles cases are rising to 935 as the measles outbreak gets worse across 30 states. But this is likely a gross underestimation because RFK Jr., the head of the HHS, Health and Human Services, refused to acknowledge the gravity of the situation, using his platform to peddle misinformation and fake cures. This from an opinion piece in Bloomberg. The front page of the San Francisco Chronicle, Alcatraz proposal called not serious. And I'll leave you with this. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent playing dumb about former Treasury Doge worker Marco Ellis's racist post and J.D. Vance's and Trump's defense of him. Play the clip.
About statements that Mr. Ellis had made in the prior year. One was, you could not pay me to marry outside my ethnicity. Another was that he wanted to normalize Indian hate. The third was, just for the record, I was racist before it was cool. And another was, I just want a eugenic immigration policy. Is that too much to ask? This man resigned shortly after that article was published, but you don't recall him being there?
Congressman, I did not recall that individual's name, but that individual was terminated.
He was terminated. Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Although it appears that he then later turned up that he was rehired, I guess, and that he's continuing.
Not by Treasury, sir.
Okay, but he was continuing to do work for Doge, but in this instance, HHS and 3 other departments. You have no idea.
I didn't follow his career.
Okay. Well, you didn't catch J.D. Vance saying that he didn't think he should be terminated? Did you miss that too?
I don't recall that.
All right. Do you recall Mr. Trump saying that he should have a second chance?
I don't recall that.
No. Okay.
Well, folks, we'll be covering Prime Minister Mark Carney's visit to the Oval Office. That'll be interesting. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 5 million subscribers, and thank you for watching.
Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.